Welcome to Shatter.
Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. It happened at Olive Garden. That's the part one can't forget. The low light, the faint smell of garlic bread, her laughter blending with the noise of other tables. Then she looked at me, calm, detached, and said it like she was reading a weather report. "You're too needy for intimacy." For a second, I thought I'd misheard. I just stared at her, waiting for some trace of warmth, a smile, anything. But she just went back to her phone, scrolling through Instagram, sipping her iced tea like the conversation was over. I didn't argue, didn't ask why. I just nodded once and said quietly, "Good. I'll stop needing you too." She laughed, that kind of soft, pitying laugh that says you won't. Then she leaned back, like she'd won something. But that moment, right there, was the last time she ever saw me needing her. The next morning, I woke up before her, made coffee from the Starbucks bag she'd left on the counter, and sat there watching the steam rise. The kitchen light felt colder than usual. There was something in the air, not anger, not sadness, just clarity. I stopped sending her the good morning texts. I stopped checking her last seen on her iPhone. When she came home late, smelling like a mix of perfume and excuses, I didn't ask where she'd been. I just moved a little further away on the couch. That's when she started to notice. The silence. The way I didn't react anymore. She'd talk about her day, about coworkers, about some new project, and I'd just listen. No questions. No emotion. Just a quiet nod. It was subtle, but I saw it. The flicker of discomfort in her eyes when she realized she didn't have my attention anymore. Then one night, she came into the bedroom wearing something from Victoria's Secret. Normally, I'd have looked at her and melted. But this time, I barely lifted my eyes from the screen. I just said, "You're beautiful," then turned off the lamp and rolled over. She didn't say a word, but I could feel the confusion, the panic building behind her silence. For years, she had the power. She decided when we talked, when we touched, when we mattered. But the moment I stopped needing her, the balance shifted. By the time she realized it, it was already too late. The first call came a week later. She was crying, saying she felt disconnected, that we'd lost our spark. I just said, "Maybe it's been gone for a while," and ended the call. That's when everything started changing, not between us, but inside me. Something heavy fell away. And for the first time in years, I felt weightless. I started seeing things differently after that call. Small things. The way she used to keep her phone face down at dinner. The new perfume she claimed was just a sample. The late-night texts from coworkers. All of it added up, piece by piece, like a quiet puzzle I hadn't wanted to solve before. One night, while she showered, her iPhone lit up on the dresser. Just one message. "He's asleep. Call me." No name, just a number. I didn't open it. Didn't take screenshots. Didn't even move the phone. I just stared at it, long enough to memorize the last 4 digits, and went downstairs. That was the moment I stopped being blind. Over the next few days, I started noticing the patterns. The late-night Target runs that took 2 hours. The sudden interest in going to yoga alone. Even the way she dressed changed, lighter, bolder, like she was rehearsing a new version of herself. And through it all, I said nothing. I went quiet in a way that unsettled her. She started asking why I was distant. I told her I was just tired. She'd lean in, trying to read my face, but I wouldn't give her anything. I became the silence she'd never been able to control. At work, people noticed too. My friend Marcus asked if I was okay. I told him I'd never been better. That was partly true. Something inside me was sharpening, getting colder. One Friday evening, she told me she was meeting Laura from marketing for drinks. I said fine, and even offered to order her an Uber. She looked surprised, like she expected a fight. That's when I knew she was testing me, seeing if I still cared enough to react. But I didn't. Instead, I made dinner alone. Simple stuff, takeout from Chick-fil-A, a cold beer, quiet music. I sat by the window and watched the headlights slide down the street. Somewhere in that stillness, I realized I wasn't hurt anymore. I was studying her, waiting for her to reveal herself completely. Around midnight, she came home smelling like someone else's cologne. She tried to talk, but I just said I was tired and went to bed. Her eyes followed me, searching for a trace of the man who used to beg for her time. But that man was gone. The next morning, she tried to be sweet. Coffee, small talk, a kiss on the cheek. I let her. But inside I knew. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about losing her grip, and I had just decided to let her. It didn't take long before the truth started slipping through her cracks. I didn't have to dig. I just had to stay quiet. People reveal themselves faster when you stop giving them a reaction. She left her MacBook open one night while getting ready for bed. A message preview flashed in the corner of the screen, a man's name I didn't recognize, followed by a heart emoji. My chest didn't tighten. My pulse didn't race. I just watched it appear, fade, and disappear again. The silence inside me was steady, heavy, unshakable. The next day, while she was at work, I logged into our shared phone plan. It took less than 5 minutes to find the pattern. Calls at odd hours, numbers saved under fake names, late-night FaceTime durations that lasted until sunrise. I didn't save any of it. I didn't take screenshots. I didn't even tell Marcus. I didn't want advice or pity. I just wanted to see her clearly, without the illusion I'd been living in. That night, she asked if I wanted to watch something together on Netflix. I said sure. We sat side by side on the couch, the glow of the TV reflecting off her face. She laughed at a scene, reached for my hand, and I let her hold it. For the first time, I felt nothing. Just the faint hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of a car passing outside. Later, when she went to bed, I stayed up scrolling through old photos of us. Trips, birthdays, small moments that once felt sacred. I realized I wasn't mourning her betrayal. I was mourning the man I used to be with her. The one who believed effort could save anything. The next morning, I woke up before dawn and drove to a quiet parking lot near a Chick-fil-A. I sat in the car and thought about what came next. Not revenge, not confrontation, just detachment. A clean, quiet separation of who I was and who I'd become. When I came home, she was leaving for work. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said she'd be home late. Meetings. I told her to take her time. As she drove away, I watched her car disappear down the street. Then I went inside, opened the drawer where she kept her jewelry, and took out the silver bracelet I'd given her last anniversary. I put it in a small box and set it by the door. That was the moment I decided to disappear, not physically, but emotionally. Completely. And that silence, that was the beginning of her unraveling. Disappearing wasn't about leaving. It was about presence, being there but unreachable. I still lived in the same house, drank the same coffee, drove the same car. But something in me had gone dark. She felt it before she understood it. I started waking up early, before sunrise, just to get out of the house. I'd go for long drives with no destination. Sometimes I stopped at a Waffle House for breakfast. Sometimes I'd park by the water and watch the world wake up. I didn't text her, didn't check in. She'd wake up to a cold side of the bed and unanswered messages. At first, she pretended it didn't bother her. She posted more, photos at work, filtered smiles, captions about self-love. But I could read between the lines. The woman who once called me too needy was now starving for attention. She tried to test me, left her phone face up now, like an invitation. Sent photos of her new outfits, little hints that she was going out again. I didn't react. I didn't even look long enough to guess who might be on the other end of those late-night notifications. I'd just pour myself a drink, put on some quiet music, and let the silence do the work. The thing about silence, it changes the power dynamic. She used to feed off my emotions, my effort. Now she had nothing to feed on, and it started to eat at her. One night, she asked why I'd been so distant. Said she missed how close we used to be. I told her I'd been reflecting, that sometimes people need distance to see clearly. She didn't know how to respond. For the first time, her eyes didn't carry that confident spark, just uncertainty. The next morning, she texted me while I was out. Can we talk tonight? I left her on read. When I came home, she was sitting on the couch, wearing one of my old hoodies, her hair pulled back, face pale. She tried to talk, but the words came out shaky. She said things felt off, like she was losing me. I told her calmly that maybe she was just feeling the balance shift. She looked at me then, really looked, like she was seeing a stranger sitting in her husband's place. That night, I didn't sleep next to her. I took the couch, not out of anger, but peace. And when she woke up and saw the empty space beside her, she finally understood what she'd created, not a man desperate for her affection, but one who'd stopped needing it altogether. She started to unravel slowly, like a thread coming loose from a sweater. I didn't push her there. I just stopped holding her together. That's what she never understood. I was the quiet gravity that kept everything in orbit. Once I pulled back, the cracks she'd hidden started to show. I kept to myself, spending more time outside the house. The gym before work, long drives after. Sometimes I'd grab coffee from Starbucks, sit by the window, and scroll through nothing, just letting my thoughts drift. I wasn't waiting for her to notice. I just needed the silence to stretch until it became something permanent. Then one afternoon, Marcus sent me a message. A photo. My wife, sitting across from another man at a small restaurant downtown. Not holding hands, not kissing, but the kind of body language that says this isn't new. I stared at it for a while, then locked my phone and set it down. I didn't feel rage. I felt distance. Like watching a movie I'd already seen. That night, she came home late again. Said she was exhausted from work. I told her she should get some rest. She looked at me, waiting for me to challenge her, to ask questions. I didn't. I went back to folding laundry, calm, steady, detached. That silence was louder than any accusation could have been. Over the next few days, her energy shifted. She tried cooking dinner again, tried asking about my day. She even laughed at my old jokes, the same ones she used to roll her eyes at. But it felt forced, like she was performing a version of herself she thought I missed. I didn't give her the reaction she wanted. I was polite, kind even, but empty. Every response was measured. Every look, deliberate. She was losing control, and she could feel it. Then came the slip. She left her laptop open again. A message popped up, a string of texts from the same man, asking if I suspected anything. She didn't know I saw it, didn't know I'd already memorized that number weeks ago. I closed the screen without a word. That night, I took my keys, my wallet, and left. No note. No explanation. I turned off my phone and drove until the city lights disappeared in the rearview mirror. She would call. I knew she would. But I didn't want to hear her voice. I wanted her to hear my absence and feel it closing in from every direction. I drove until the gas light came on. Ended up in a quiet town 2 hours away, the kind of place with one diner, one gas station, and silence that feels heavy. I checked into a small motel by the highway, the kind with flickering neon lights and thin walls. I didn't tell anyone where I went, not even Marcus. I needed distance, not just from her, but from the noise of everything we'd built. That first night away, I sat outside the motel with a cup of bad coffee and watched trucks pass by. I felt detached, not broken, not angry, just still. The kind of stillness that comes when the fight leaves you, and all that's left is clarity. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for her to text. I wasn't checking her location. I wasn't hoping. By morning, my phone had 30 missed calls and a string of messages. Some were calm, some frantic. Then came the voicemails, her crying, saying she didn't know what was happening, begging me to talk. I didn't answer. I let the silence sit where my words used to be. The next few days, I stayed in that small town. Bought groceries from a local Walmart, took long walks near the water, talked to no one. I wasn't hiding. I was watching from a distance, like I'd finally stepped outside the movie of my own life. Back home, she didn't know what to do. I could tell by the messages. She'd gone from defensive to desperate. I just want to understand. Can we fix this? Please, just tell me you're okay. I left every message unopened. The silence was my answer. Marcus called once, said she'd been asking around, saying she was worried. He told me I should at least let her know I was safe. I told him I was. That was all. He paused before saying, "She's realizing what she lost, man." That was the point. Not revenge, revelation. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd taken for granted. Not through anger, but through absence. After a week, I packed up and drove back home. She didn't know I was coming. Her car was in the driveway, lights on inside. I parked quietly and just sat there for a moment, watching through the window. She was pacing, phone in hand, lost. And that's when I knew she was no longer the one in control. When I finally walked through the door, she froze like she'd seen a ghost. Her phone slipped from her hand and hit the floor, screen lighting up with a dozen unread messages. I didn't say anything. I just picked it up, placed it on the table, and went upstairs. The silence between us was sharp, like glass. For the first time, she didn't follow me. She stood in the hallway, watching, unsure of what to do. That hesitation, that loss of control, was new for her. It was the first sign that the balance had shifted completely. Over the next few days, I was home, but not there. I'd wake up early, make breakfast for myself, go about my day without a word. When she tried to talk, I kept my tone calm, even friendly, but detached. No warmth. No interest. It drove her insane. She started apologizing for things I hadn't mentioned. Said she missed us. Said she'd been stressed. Said she'd made mistakes. I didn't respond. I just nodded, said, I understand, and walked away. That's what broke her. Not anger, not accusations, but indifference. She couldn't fight silence. She tried everything to pull me back. Cooked my favorite dinner, bought me new shirts, even left little notes on the counter. I read them, folded them neatly, and left them there. I wasn't cruel. I was calm. That calmness terrified her more than shouting ever could. At night, I'd sit on the porch with a drink, staring out at the street. Sometimes she'd join me, trying to start small talk. I'd let her speak, then stand up and go inside. The pattern became predictable, her reaching, me retreating. Every time she tried to close the distance, I made sure she felt how far I'd already gone. Then one evening, I came home to find her sitting on the couch, crying quietly. No makeup, no defense, just raw. She said she couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't stop thinking about what she'd done. I listened, not with sympathy, but with a kind of quiet acknowledgement. I told her it wasn't about punishment. It was about balance, about finally seeing each other clearly. She looked up, searching for some trace of the man who used to beg for her affection. I met her eyes and said nothing. That night, she stayed on the couch. I went to bed alone, peaceful. And for the first time, she understood what it meant to lose someone who was still right in front of her. The house felt different now, quieter, heavier. She moved through it like a ghost, careful not to disturb the silence. I could tell she was trying to understand me again, trying to find the version of me that used to orbit her moods. But he was gone, buried under the weight of everything she'd taken for granted. I started going out more, not to escape, but to breathe. Long runs in the morning, dinners alone, quiet drives at night. Sometimes I'd stop by a small diner on the edge of town and eat without checking my phone once. The waitress knew my order: black coffee, grilled chicken, nothing fancy. It was strange how peaceful it felt to live without her reactions defining mine. At home, she started unraveling in real time. The calls from friends stopped. The coworkers who used to laugh with her now kept their distance. Marcus told me word had spread. People knew about the affair, though no one said it outright. She could feel it too. The way people avoided her eyes, the polite smiles that never reached their faces. Her world, once loud and confident, was shrinking. I didn't say a word. I just watched. She came to me one evening, eyes red, asking if we could start over. Said she didn't know what she'd been chasing, that nothing felt real anymore. I told her that sometimes, losing everything is the only way to see what was real in the first place. Then I stood up and walked away. The next day, she cleaned the whole house, cooked dinner, even set the table with candles. When I came home, I nodded, thanked her, and ate quietly. She kept looking at me like she wanted to ask something, but couldn't find the courage. Finally, she said she missed the man I used to be. I told her softly, that man existed because he believed in us. She cried then, not loud, not for show, just quiet, broken tears. I didn't comfort her. I didn't move closer. I let her sit with the emptiness she'd created. That silence between us was no longer mine to fill. Later that night, she knocked on my door, asked if I hated her. I said no. Hate is still a connection. What we had now was something colder, cleaner, and that scared her more than hate ever could. She started to fall apart quietly, and I let her. There was no revenge in it, just the slow correction of balance. Every choice she'd made had a weight, and now she was finally feeling it pressed down. I'd see her sitting in the kitchen some mornings, still in her robe, staring at nothing. The woman who once overflowed with confidence was now just small. At work, she lost her edge. Marcus told me her boss had pulled her off a project after she missed too many deadlines. Her friends stopped calling, the ones who used to cheer her on during her self-discovery phase. Even her phone, once buzzing nonstop, barely lit up anymore. She'd scroll through old photos, probably the same ones I'd once looked at in silence, and I knew exactly what memory haunted her. Not the moments themselves, but the version of herself she'd been when I still looked at her like she was everything. I didn't gloat. I didn't even feel satisfaction, just distance. Watching her lose the world she'd built on lies didn't give me joy. It just confirmed what I already knew. that without truth, everything collapses eventually. One night, she came to me again. No makeup, no armor, just tears. She said she finally understood that the problem wasn't that I needed her too much. It was that she didn't value being needed. She said she missed the safety, the quiet loyalty I carried without asking for anything back. Her voice cracked when she said she couldn't feel herself anymore. I listened, not as her husband, not as her judge, just as a man who'd already said goodbye long ago. She asked if I could ever forgive her. I told her forgiveness was never the issue. I'd already made peace with what happened. What she wanted wasn't forgiveness, it was access. Access to the version of me she'd destroyed. She broke down completely then, sat on the floor, sobbing, whispering that she wished she could go back. I stayed standing, calm, unmoved. When she finally looked up, I said, "You can't go back. None of us can. But you can face what you've done and grow from it." She reached out her hand. I didn't take it, not out of cruelty, but because for the first time, I was standing in my own strength. And she finally saw what real distance looks like, not miles, but peace. The days after that conversation felt quiet, almost sacred. Something had shifted completely between us. She was no longer the woman who controlled the tempo, who decided when we were close and when we were strangers. Now, she was the one waiting for a sign, and I was the one who chose when silence ended. She moved softer now, spoke slower, as if afraid to disturb what little remained. I watched her try to rebuild herself piece by piece. She stopped wearing the perfume he liked, deleted half her social media, started cooking again, not to impress me, but to ground herself. I noticed, but I didn't comment. I just existed beside her like a calm shadow, present, but untouchable. One evening, I came home from work and found her sitting on the porch. No phone, no tears. Just sitting there, watching the sky fade into darkness. She asked if I'd join her. I did. We sat in silence for a long time. The air between us was heavy but clean. No lies, no begging, no performance. Then she spoke softly, almost to herself. She said she realized that love wasn't about control or excitement, but about presence, about someone who stays when things get quiet. She said she hadn't understood that until I stopped needing her. I didn't respond right away. I just let her words hang there, fragile and honest. Then I told her the truth, that I hadn't left her to punish her. I left because I needed to find myself again. That the man who once begged for scraps was gone, and the one sitting next to her now didn't need validation, only respect. She nodded, tears slipping down her face. No dramatics this time, just real emotion. She said she didn't deserve another chance, but hoped she'd earn one. I looked at her, not as the woman who broke me, but as someone who finally saw me clearly. I told her maybe this wasn't about second chances. Maybe it was about new terms. Mutual respect. Real connection. She reached out her hand again, slowly this time, like she knew it wasn't guaranteed I'd take it. I looked at it for a moment, then took it, not out of weakness, but strength. The kind that comes from knowing I could walk away at any moment and still be whole. As the night settled around us, she leaned against me quietly. And for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like forgiveness. It felt like balance. Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe. This is where we talk about what doesn't get forgiven.